From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, welcome back. Dr. Jason here at Dental Lighthouse Podcast, and a couple things that I want to unpack for you. As you guys know, I was in Frisco a couple weeks ago presenting at the Dental Success Summit for my really good friend, Dr. Mark Costas, and it was an awesome event. It was so great to connect with a lot of my good friends, the Addison Colleen's of the world, the Summer Casmels of the world. You know, to be honest with you, there's really only one Addison and one Summer. So I don't know why I said the Addison Colleen's of the world. There's like one unique Addison. There's one unique Summer. There's one unique Alistair. So it was awesome to connect with them. But as some of you guys know, I presented there talking about ideal scheduling templates for doctors to be productive, and depending on how much experience you have as a doctor. And I felt like I did a decent job. The feedback I got from the people there was very, very good. And I was able to connect with a few people after the course and just get a little bit of an understanding as to where they're coming from. Well, one of them is back on the podcast, and I'm excited to have him on. His name's Bill. He's from Florida. He's got a really unique story, and he's got a lot of good questions that he wants to try to unpack. So, Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. So just to give you a little bit of context on Bill, young doc, and is in the process of doing a scratch start in the Southeast part of the United States. And, you know, we just talked a little bit offline or before we hit record, and this is his first full week and things are going well. He's doing all his own hygiene, scheduling appointments for, you know, an hour to 2 hours a piece. And I just shared with him that that's an exciting yet very nerve-wracking time. I've been there before, and you know, it's just so exciting to kind of have patients believe in you and believe in what you're doing and trust in you. And when, especially in a market where he's at, it's super competitive and there's lots of different choices for patients to choose from. So he's obviously doing something right. I'm glad to have him on the show and excited to unpack what he wants to unpack. So, Bill, do you want to give a little bit of context as to what the last year or so has been like for you, and then we can kind of go from there?
Sure thing. I was an associate the last full year, and I actually just ended my associateship last week, and we transitioned full-time here at my startup. It kind of worked out this way, and this is how we're going to roll with it. But startup world is definitely different. There's a lot more work than I maybe had anticipated, and it doesn't take away from the joys of it. It's just certainly a lot more than being an associate. But one thing I want to talk to you about, and we have several leaders, if maybe we can unpack that some more. Several leaders that we both resonate with, like Dave Ramsey. And one thing that resonates with me and Dave, and maybe you as well, is how I can incorporate my faith into my business. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that and maybe unpack that some more.
Yeah, super good question. And I don't think there's any right or wrong answer to this. I can only share with you kind of what my journey's been. And to be honest with you, early on in my career, it was a little bit of a struggle. I certainly wasn't ashamed of my faith, but I didn't want to be that person that was thumping people over the head with Bibles, right? Like I've been around people that are really good at telling you what they're about and preaching. But at the same time, when you really get to know them, maybe they're not acting in the same vein that they're describing. So I know for me, it was really, really important to be the hands and feet of Christ from a modeling perspective. In fact, I just wrote a blog about this actually earlier today. with the central premise of more is caught than is taught to the people that we're leading. And by that I mean, it's easy for me to say, we need to treat our team this way, or I need to parent that way, or I need to be this person to my spouse or this person in my community. And that's all well and good. And I appreciate that people have those intentions. But where the rubber meets the road is actually action, right? So I say to my kids all the time, don't tell me what you're going to do. Actually show me what you're going to do. So in trying to unpack this question, and it's just, again, an amazing one, that's where I would start. And that's when I really started to feel like I could um, communicate my faith through actions without feeling like I was um, thumping people over the head with a Bible. So I'm just trying to be the person that God intended me to be the person, um, an actionable person, act in a way that God intended me to be, model the behavior that God intended me to model from a position of empathy, from a position of honesty, from a position of humility, realizing that, I'm never going to get it right all the time. But just trying my best to be that person that God has ultimately intended me to be. If you listen to the podcast, I'm sure you've heard this story, but for those listeners out there that haven't, um, about 10 years ago, I was exposed to, I forget, it could have been a book from Ed Milet. And Ed Milet talked about what he calls the definition of hell. And he unpacked it to be the following. His definition of hell was going through life, living a certain way, and then ultimately passing on, and then you go to meet your maker. So I'm trying to put myself in that position. I live my life, I die, and then I'm at the gates. I go to meet Jesus. And as I'm walking up to Jesus, there's someone standing next to him. And I say to Jesus, who's this? And he says to me, "Oh, Jason, this is the person I intended you to be. This is the person that I created um, for this life." And in that moment, we have to decide, do I resemble this person? Do I recognize this person? Like, if Jesus created me to be a certain way, I want to be able to see this person and be like, yeah, okay, I was pretty close. Was I perfect? No, but I was really, really close to who Jesus intended me to be. My biggest fear, or what Ed Milet is calling the definition of hell, is going through life living a certain way and then getting to meet this person and not recognizing them. To have Jesus say to me, "This is who I intended you to be, and you were nothing like this," right? That is really, really scary for me. So that's what kind of gets me out of bed, really every morning is, okay, I have a purpose here on this earth. Jesus created me in his likeness to attack the day, to fulfill a mission. And I'm going to do that. And since I've started doing that, since I've really just started trying to act that way, just literally just punish people with agape love, um, it's been a fun ride. It's been really, really good. So, a lot to unpack there, but at a high level, that's kind of what I think about when I'm trying to think about, how am I intertwining my faith with my business? And it's not just business, as you know, right? It's my faith with my family and my parenting and my relationships, and my church and the teams I coach and all of that. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's really helpful. And yeah, it's helpful to think that it's consistent to wherever you are. It's not just at work, but it's who you are outside of work as well. And so it's one of those things where you don't want to hide it, but yeah, you also don't want to be overly preachy, or, you don't want to cross any professional boundaries. And so that's another dynamic too, where maybe I get your thoughts on how you can maybe even share the gospel with some colleagues without being too preachy or crossing any boundaries.
Yeah. So two things come to mind, and I'm not going to do this quote credit because I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was Tim Tebow that said this. At least I've heard it from Tebow, the famous quarterback that went to the University of Florida, right in your neck of the woods. he said something along the lines of, we should preach, no, we should preach the gospel. Yeah, this is what it was. We should be preaching the gospel every day, and only use words when we have to, or something along those lines. So the point that it was trying to make is, again, kind of like to my first point, is we don't necessarily need to preach the gospel um, verbally. Uh, but I think there's so much value in having others watch how we behave, how we treat others, the choices that we make, the character that we're developing. And to be honest with you, it's kind of independent of all religions, right? It's not necessarily like Christianity, like only Christianity should follow this set of rules, right? It's just being a good person. It's just like being the person that God intended me to be. Um, I kind of reflect on that a lot because you're right. Like in the workplace with certain labor laws and stuff like that. And again, people that are atheists and people that just don't want to hear it. I don't want to be the person that's going to be like prying into their life saying, well, you should do this or you should do that. But if they see how I'm behaving and if they see how I'm acting, and that gives them a motivation to um, ask questions, then I'll be there. You know, it's the classic, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I once heard Joel Osteen, and, you know, people have different thoughts about Joel Osteen. He's a mega pastor in Texas. But one of the things that I learned from Joel Osteen, he tells a story that he was playing pickup basketball one day, and he was just treating everyone with so much kindness, so much respect, so much humility. And the people around him could see this light or this energy about him. And that's how a lot of these basketball players started coming up to him and saying, like, you know, what do you got going on? And the way he was trying to unpack the story is, I'm not going to thump people over the head with a Bible, but I'm going to act in such a way where people are coming to me and and they want to be like, you know, are you on something? Like, what are you drinking? Because I want some of that. And that story just so resonated with me, right? If we walk around day to day miserable or playing the victim or woe is me, or, you know, not sitting in the gap long enough and losing our temper, like nobody's going to want a piece of that. But if we can truly love on people, if we can be patient with people, if we can sit in that gap and really respond the way that Jesus would have wanted us to respond, or how he responded, I think it just speaks volumes um, to others that are around us, and then they start to ask questions about, you know, what are you doing? You know, what Kool-Aid are you drinking, Jason? Because I want some of that. Um, and I believe that to be true.
Yeah, that helps and that makes a lot of sense. But let me ask you too, what about maybe difficult patients or even difficult staff? How do you handle those in a way that reflects Christ's love and in an honoring, respectful way, yet still, you know, firm and still um, handling those difficult conversations gracefully?
Yeah. Again, super good question. Let's tackle it first and foremost from a staffing perspective. So, as you may or may not know, in my servant leadership class, we talk a lot about this, and the whole class, the whole whatever it is, 10, 15 hours of content is focused around agape love and focused around truly loving on people. And that's a little bit of an ambiguous term. Okay, what do you mean to truly love on people? Well, we really break it down and we get really granular, and we talk about the 8 principles of agape love. And, you know, a couple of them: kindness, patience, humility, respect, honesty, commitment. Everything from Corinthians, the love verse in Corinthians. So with that as a backdrop, I feel like as long as we're behaving in that way, then we're doing what Jesus ultimately intended us to do. So in the context of team members, you know, I'm being super patient with them. I'm being kind with them. I'm respecting them and all the things that go with that, right? We can unpack each one of those principles. But the hard team members, like you're alluding to, the the agape love principle of honesty is really where that comes into play. So we have to be really honest with our team. And the true definition of honesty is telling the truth and being free from deceit. So it's one thing to say, hey, you're making great temporaries to your assistant, but if you conveniently leave out the part, but when you gossip, or when you roll your eyes to other people, or when you are passive aggressive to the hygienist on the hall, like that's not what we're all about. Like doctors who haven't been coached up on this, they're really good at giving praise. Oh, your temporaries are great, but they conveniently leave out the other honesty parts because it's uncomfortable for them. They haven't flexed that muscle yet. So if we can truly be honest with people and tell them both the good and the things that they need to work on, that's the first part. The second part is coaching them up so they ultimately get it. Now, some people you can coach up through daily check-ins, weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins, and they ultimately get it. And they thank you. They're like, I had no idea I was rolling my eyes when people gave me feedback, or I had no idea that being late for work was having this impact on the team, or I so appreciate you bringing this to my attention. And then they slowly but surely get better. But there are other people that you give this feedback to, and they're in denial, or they're a victim, or they don't want to hear it. Now, again, and I know you realize this, if we're truly trying to show them agape love, if we truly care about them, then we have to ultimately do something to them or for them that's going to help them understand where we're coming from. And in some situations, it could be terminating them, right? It's just like if you had a close relative that was a drug addict, and he was continually abusing drugs, and he asked to live with you, and you gave him a place to live, and you're trying to coach him up, and he says he's going to get better, but he kind of falls back into this pattern of behavior, and he's continuing to abuse. At a certain point, because you love him, you ultimately have to say, I can't have you staying here anymore. Like I have to draw a line. I have to exhibit some really tough love here, because what we're doing is not working. And my ultimate goal for you is for you to get better, for you to become the best version of yourself. And the current dynamic, the current situation, it's just not working. So as much as it pains you to have to kick this person out of your home because you love them, deep down, you know that maybe they do need to hit rock bottom in order to ultimately get better. The same kind of premise. And I feel the same way with patients, and we can unpack specific patient examples. But as far as the examples I gave regarding team members, is that resonating with you? Does it make sense?
Oh, totally. It makes sense. And I think, showing them love without the truth aspect isn't really loving at all. And so, yeah, and not being clear, it's also not being kind. And so that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, as you heard me say a couple of weeks ago in Frisco, quoting Dave Ramsey, to be unclear is to be unkind. So I think it's, quote unquote, easy to show certain principles of agape love, the patience part of it, the kindness part of it. But where it gets a little uncomfortable is when we're truly being honest. And early on in my career, I really struggled with that. I really struggled with even my kids and my wife. Now, it comes with practice. Loving on people, agape love is a skill, learned or acquired ability. So you have to teach yourself to do it. But once you teach yourself to do it and you see the benefits of it, you just want to do it more and more and more. So your point is spot on. Like, if you're going to love on someone, you can't be selective with what parts of agape love you're choosing. Like Jesus never did that. I mean, Jesus would be unbelievably graceful and merciful and patient and kind, but at the same time, brutally honest. So
Super helpful. What about patience? Because there's also the business side where, you don't want to be too unkind or too harsh with patients to where you leave terrible experiences, but at the same time sometimes it requires those difficult conversations. And so how do you handle those?
Yeah, it is a different dynamic, and sometimes it can be a little bit harder until you kind of develop enough experience and it starts to become a little bit easier. Um, I find it kind of falls into two buckets. The first bucket is someone that's let's say normal, a kind person, a regular patient, and you're making treatment recommendations for them, and they, for whatever reason, choose not to do that, or they ask you to do something else. But in your professional opinion, based on your expertise, it's really not in their best interest, right? So being, again, going back to honesty, um, delivering honesty in a super empathetic way and being like, Mrs. Jones, like, I totally get that this is what you want me to do. I just need you to know it's really not in your best interest. I can understand that you don't realize that, but just based on my experience, I've seen what happens when we do this, dot, dot, dot. And I'm just not going to lower my standards, and put you in harm's way and do that. And then I like to, as you heard me say in Frisco a couple of weeks ago, I love to handle the objection before it becomes an objection. So I would follow up that statement with, I know this is not what you want to hear, and I'm sorry that I have to deliver this to you. And is, if this is making you think that you need to go find another dentist, like I get that. And do I like it? Absolutely not. Do I value you as a patient? 100%. But I am not going to put you in harm's way just to make a little bit of money or just to keep you as a patient. It's just not what I'm all about. And I find that when you can deliver at that level of honesty, what typically happens is the patient might leave upset, frustrated. I'm going to go somewhere else, transfer my records. And then maybe about a week later, they give you a call, and they say, you know what? I've had a chance to really kind of digest what you said. And I'd like to have another conversation. So it leads to, for lack of a better term, rectifying the situation. The other side of that is patients that are truly obnoxious, right? That don't have any understanding about how their behavior is affecting you, affecting the team, affecting the business. Um, and again, it all comes back to love, right? If I'm going to truly love on my team, then if a patient is over the top rude, disrespectful, says inappropriate things, um, I'm not kicking someone out of the practice, but you better believe that I'm having a very uncomfortable conversation with that patient and just resetting expectations that I understand this is how you feel, but we do not speak to each other this way. We are not, I am not going to condone you talking to my front desk person, Mary, raising your voice or, yelling at her for things that are out of her control, like your insurance benefits or whatever we're talking about here. So I love having those conversations. In fact, my team knows that I love having them. So they're like, "Hey, Jason, we got someone that you need to talk to." So like Jesus, I try to be full of grace. So I'm going to have a conversation with this person from a position of honesty and lay everything out. And I'd say half the time, these patients kind of get in line and they understand that I'm not going to tolerate that level of rudeness or raising their voice or anything like that. And then the other half of the time, they do it again. And as soon as they do it again, I get I get called back in. I say, Mr. Jones, I'm sorry. We had this conversation a few weeks ago about your behavior and how it's not tolerating. Like, for I can no longer continue to condone this behavior. So for that reason, we're no longer going to be able to be your dentist. It really sucks for me, but I have to protect what I built here. I have to protect my team. They are everything. They support everything that we're trying to do here. And they know that I would never put them in harm's way. So we can treat you on an emergency basis for the next 30 days. And I can help you find another dentist. I'll forward your x-rays. I'll forward your records. There won't be any costs associated with it. But we're no longer going to be able to be your dentist. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I might have to listen to that a few times and practice that.
Yeah, it rolls off the tongue for me because I've only had that conversation about 100 times. So once you say it a bunch, once you say it a bunch, you tend to get somewhat confident in having that conversation.
That's good. That's good. It's
Yeah,
helpful.
I hope this has been helpful for you, Bill.
Extremely helpful. Yeah, super, super helpful. Thank you.
Anything else on your mind?
Well, I was just going to ask you one more. Maybe we talked about like the people side of it, but in terms of like the entrepreneurial side of it, how do you stay rooted in your faith while facing all the challenges that comes with running a business? I'm in the startup phase, but I'm sure challenges are going to increase as time goes. And so how do you stay rooted in your faith?
Very carefully. I don't mean to be a smartass, but every time you hit a tier, right? You go from $50,000 a month to $100,000 a month, or you go from 5 employees to 10 employees, or you go from one location to 2 locations, right? We call these like ceilings of complexity. And every time you come up against a ceiling of complexity, you need to take a step back and say, okay, am I rooted in my core values? Am I rooted in what, from a faith-based perspective, what Jesus has me on this earth to do? And it's just constantly having that conversation with myself, or more importantly, with people that you trust, like your spouse, if he or she's a believer, or a men's group that you might be in, or people at your church or what have you. It's just constantly kind of reevaluating where I'm at. I do find that as we've grown and as we've become more and more profitable, as we've done more and more revenue, again, going back to Dave Ramsey, because it's rare that I have an original idea in my head. I've stolen them all from the Dave Ramseys, the Craig Rochelle's, the Ryan Holidays of the world. Dave Ramsey does an amazing job of this imagery of a chalice, where he tells small business owners, when it comes to how much money is enough, how much should we be keeping, he wants people to envision this chalice on a saucer. And he said everyone has to figure out how big their cup should be. And we can talk about granular things on another call, but it comes down to, what it costs to pay back your debt. What kind of lifestyle do you want to provide for your kids and for your wife, and your ability to give back and stuff like that. One second, I'm just getting a phone call here. So once you have clarity on that, then everything that overflows that and falls into the saucer is what you're giving back. And I just love that. I love that mindset, right? Because I have an idea about how big my cup should be, because I have certain expenses at home. I have a certain lifestyle that I want to provide for my family. I feel like we're grounded in those expectations. And to be honest with you, the lifestyle that I'm providing my family is the same now as it was 10 years ago, even though we've almost tripled in size, right? So I think you get to a certain point where you get clarity on, okay, this is what I want for my family in order to raise great kids, in order to give them what they need, but also make them work hard for certain things in life. So you get to that certain point where you have clarity on how big this cup should be. And then as you continue to grow this business and become more profitable, then it just means that there's more overflow that goes into the saucer. And with that overflow, it just gives us this really amazing ability to give back. And that's where, this flywheel starts to really get a lot of momentum. So an example, and I'm trying to say this in the most humblest way possible. I'm not going to share dollar amounts or anything, but as a family, we have these conversations all the time. And my kids are old enough now where they know that I make great money. We do great things. And with this money, we should be serving others. We should be fulfilling a greater purpose. So we get to the point now where we've decided on a dollar amount every week, and it's not a small dollar amount, where we're writing a check every single week to specific people in our community that could really benefit from this. And one week it could be to the drama club at the school because they have an impossible time raising money. The next week, it could be for people in our town that suffered a fire and were not properly insured. And then the next week it's this, and then the next week it's that. And that's what really gets you going. That's what really motivates me to continue to grow and to continue to increase revenue, increase profitability, all while adhering to our core values. Is it just opens up so much ability to give, to serve others. And it just, in my opinion, it can leave like a huge mark on people that otherwise may not have had the benefit of having this gift to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's super. Well, it's practical and also exciting to be able to get to that point. And,
yeah,
motivating.
Yeah. And again, I'm at a different point in my life and a different point in my business than you are, but you could do that now, right? Like you could say,
Sure.
We're going to do $25 a week, right? And it just gets you in the mindset of service. It gives you in the mindset of like, there's people out there that really need, and I want to be able to help them. And as you grow and as you do more revenue and become more profitable, then that number can just slowly but surely increase. And you're staying close to the values that are really important to you.
Super helpful. Thank you for this. Very encouraged by it.
Anytime, brother. I love talking about this stuff. A lot of the calls I get on here are about, how do I get my hygienist to show up for work, and how do I get my case acceptance stuff? So being able to answer these questions, it's a unique and different episode, but one that is super important to me, and I really am humbled and grateful that you're giving me an opportunity and a platform to kind of communicate some of these thoughts to younger docs like you that, I had a lot of great mentors when I was your age too, and just in an effort to kind of pay it forward and maybe collapse time for them.
Well, thank you very much. That means a lot.
Anytime. So, hey, good luck on the startup. I'm so excited for you. I know it's going to be crazy awesome. You have my contact information. You have the resources at dentallighthouse.com. If you need me for anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to be wildly successful, and keep preaching the good word, and only use words if you have to.
Love it. Thank you so much. Thanks again for your time.
Have a good one, brother.
You too.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.